This is an improvised story based on the randomly generated word branch. Branch. The lumberjack climbed to the tallest branch of the tallest tree he could find. And from there, he looked out to see just how far the forest went. For as far as the forest went, that's as far as his axe would take him. That's right, this lumberjack was a dick. And he hated trees, and it was his life's mission to kill all of the trees in the world. And you might be wondering why. Why would this lumberjack hate trees? Surely he must love trees. Trees give him his livelihood. Trees give him the planks by which he built his house. Trees give him the fire by which he cooks his dinner. And yet he loathed trees. For when he was a child, him and his father were walking through the forest, and his father said, "Oh, look at the lovely trees and the lovely nature that we have around our cabin, which is made of trees, and isn't that wonderful, young Jeremiah?" For that is the lumberjack's name. And the father led him through the forest and tried to instill a great wonder in the trees. And he was saying, "Look, hark, an owl on the high branch there. Do you see it? Do you see it, Jeremiah?" And Jeremiah did see it, and that owl was beautiful. And as they were staring up at that owl, a tree fell and crushed his father. Should I be laughing this much this early? I don't know. And that is why Jeremiah hated the trees. It was his life's journey to seek vengeance on the trees, so that they may not murder anymore. And so he looked out from that perch and saw scores and scores of forest, and he thought, well, surely I can never cut through the entire forest. That would be insane. And then he looked at the axe in his hand, and he said, "But by golly, I'll try." And he leapt from the tree and landed on his feet like the superhero lumberjack that he was. And he started going to town, started chopping trees left and right. And one by one they fell, and he heard birds begin to call out. And they went down to him and said, "Jeremiah, what are you doing?" Jeremiah said, "What does it look like I'm doing, birds? I'm chopping these trees down." They said, "But the trees are our home. The trees are where we raise our children and where our parents live. And where will we go if you take the trees away?" And Jeremiah said, "That you'll go where I went when you took my father away." And they asked, "Where did you go, Jeremiah?" And he said, "To the caves to plot my revenge." And they said, "Okay, are you suggesting that we go to caves to plot revenge against you?" And Jeremiah said, "Yes. And if one day one of your sons, or even you, although probably not you, because birds don't have that long of a lifespan unless you're a parrot or something and you don't look like a parrot. And if one day you or your sons were to find me and seek vengeance, I'll have my axe in hand, ready to defend myself and kill all of you if need be." Man, this is getting way more anti-nature than I thought it was going to be. We're going, it's real late here, so I'm going off the deep end. It's like 2 a.m. Let's get weird with it. And so the birds flew off, and there were no more birds in the forest, and it was all quiet. And Jeremiah said, "Great. Now the only soundtrack to my axing of the trees, my felling of these trees, will be the crack of the wood beneath my blade and the crash as a tree falls to the ground." And he kept on. And then he heard a rustling in the bushes, and it was the deer. And the deer came up, and they said, "Jeremiah, why are you killing all of the trees? The trees, they're our home. They give shade to the plants that we eat on the ground, and they provide us a soft bed to rest our head at the night. What will we do if we cannot rest, and we cannot seek the shade, and we cannot eat. And Jeremiah said, I don't care what you do, dear. It's not my problem. Figure it out for yourself, and if one day you got a problem with me and what I'm doing, then I invite you to fight me about it, just like I told the birds. And this was confusing to the deer because they hadn't been part of that conversation, and they're like, why is this guy so angry at the trees and at nature? And so they're like, this is weird, we gotta get out of here. And so they also went to the caves. And they joined the birds there. It's where it's the only place they could hide from the mighty wrath of Jeremiah. And thankfully they found the birds there, and the birds said, come to the caves. Here we will plan our next step. And Jeremiah, well, he'd made good headway in the forest now, and over half of it was already gone. And he kept cutting that axe. And it was very quiet now, and then he saw an owl up in a high, high tree. And he remembered what his father said, how his father loved that owl. Not the same owl, of course, but this must have been, or could have been, the son or daughter of that owl that his father had pointed at all those years ago. And he remembered that when he was young, the tree fell, and the owl flew away. And yet here he saw the descendant of that owl standing on a branch again. The owl bore no grudge to the tree for falling. The owl sought no vengeance. Not that he could, he's just an owl, he's very weak, he can't chop a tree down. But the owl was undisturbed. The owl knew this was the way of the world, and Jeremiah realized this. All at once he realized it, and he thought to himself, my, have I made a mistake? And he thought to himself, well, what can I do with all this lumber that I've cut down? What can I do that's good? How can I correct the error of my ways, this path that I've gone down? Oh, cursed be to me. And he turned to look back at the lumber behind him, and as he turned, he saw a cloud, a gray cloud forming, and it was getting bigger. And he saw rain underneath the cloud, also getting bigger. And it grew as it got closer to him, and he realized that was no cloud, and that was no rain. That was a cloud of birds, and the rain below was a horde of deer. And he saw the birds and the deer from the caves. They had sought their vengeance, and they were seeking to bring their vengeance down upon Jeremiah. And so he thought, what shall I do? And he called to them, forgive me, please forgive me, for the error of my ways. And the loudest bird at the front said, forgive you, look at all of the lumber that we are now flying over. You did this, and you must pay. And Jeremiah said, well, I will fight you. I will fight you, nature. And he brought the axe back, but he didn't even have a chance to swing it once before the horde of deer and birds descended upon him and crushed his bones, and the birds tore his flesh and just destroyed this human being. And then Jeremiah, now dead, his spirit lifted up, and he was a ghost, and he looked around, and the bird saw him, because, as we all know, birds can talk to ghosts. And Jeremiah said, my God, what have I done? And the bird said, that's right, what have you done? And you can't do it any more, for there is no satiating the vengeance and the greed of man. But we, nature, will always win. And now that you are gone, we will build back this forest to an even greater splendor than ever before. Jeremiah said, "Well, as is the folly of man." And he looked up at the owl in the tree, and the owl said, "Whoo." And Jeremiah said, "Man, that's who, the folly of man. Did you not hear me?" And the owl just rolled his eyes. The end. Turned into a modern day folktale a little bit there. I guess this is an allegory for climate change. Didn't see that coming at all. It's like, yeah, sure, you could destroy the nature, and nature will ultimately destroy you if you mess it up bad enough. I don't want to get too far into an environmental spiel here, but it seems pretty clear. I did not see that coming. They just had a lumberjack. It could have gone a number of different ways, but I kind of like birds and deer seeking vengeance on a lumberjack. I kind of like ending it on that point. It's just crazy chaos. There you go. Modern day folktale. What do you call that one? Folly of man? Bird vengeance? Bird justice? It was a deer too, but bird justice sounds better. I'm gonna call it bird justice. There we go. All right. There's a nice little bedtime story. There we go. Like and subscribe if you like it. I'm gonna keep doing them. See you next time.